He thought it was just another delivery, a rainy night, a heavy package, a billionaire's mansion. But the moment he stepped inside, he saw his mother's face hanging on the wall, framed in gold, inside a house she had never mentioned, owned by a man she had spent 24 years running from. And when the billionaire finally spoke, he said 5 words that shattered everything. "I've been waiting for you." That night, a 19-year-old delivery boy walked into a mansion believing he understood his life. He thought his mother was just a tired woman working 3 jobs to survive. He thought his father had abandoned them. He thought the past was something poor people didn't get to have. But hidden behind those marble walls was a truth so dangerous it had forced his mother to erase herself from existence, change her name, and raise her son in silence to keep him alive. This is the story of a delivery that uncovered a buried love, a powerful conspiracy, and a sacrifice that lasted 24 years. Stay with me until the end, because what this billionaire reveals next will change how you see family, loyalty, and love forever. The mansion door opened with a soft chime, and the delivery boy stepped inside, helmet still in his hand, rain dripping from his jacket. He'd been told to bring the package directly to the owner, something billionaires rarely requested, but nothing prepared him for what he saw next. The walls weren't lined with art. They were lined with photographs, black and white portraits, each framed in gold, each impossibly pristine. He walked past them slowly, until one photo stopped him cold. His hands trembled, his breath caught in his throat, because the face staring back at him, smiling gently, hair pinned the same way she wore it every morning, was his mother. The mother who had never spoken of her past. The mother who worked 3 jobs to raise him. The mother who told him this city held nothing for them. He stepped back, heart pounding. "What? What is this?" he whispered. Behind him, a deep voice replied, "You recognize her?" The billionaire was standing at the top of the staircase, hands clasped behind his back. His eyes weren't angry. They weren't surprised. They ached with something the delivery boy couldn't name. "Why is my mom's photo in your mansion?" The words flew out of him. He didn't care who the man was. He needed answers. The billionaire descended 1 step at a time, each footfall echoing through the marble hall. "I've waited," he said softly. 24 years for someone to ask me that." The boy's chest tightened, because in that moment, before the truth was spoken, he already felt his entire life shifting beneath him. Stay with me until the end, because what the billionaire reveals next will shatter everything. This boy thought he knew about family, loyalty, and the secrets parents bury to protect their children. Before we begin, don't forget to like this video, hit subscribe, and comment where you're watching from. Now, let's get started. Marcus Chen was 19 years old and thought he understood his world perfectly. Every morning at 6, he'd wake up in their cramped studio apartment on the south side of the city. His mother, Elena, would already be gone to her first job at the diner downtown. By the time he left for his delivery rounds, she'd be rushing to her second shift at the dry cleaner. Their routine never changed. Work, survive, repeat. The delivery business kept him busy, but it wasn't glamorous. Most days meant navigating traffic, dodging angry dogs, and dealing with customers who barely looked at him. But that Tuesday evening changed everything when his supervisor handed him an address that made his stomach drop. Millionaire's Row, the part of town where people like him only went to work, never to belong. The package was heavier than usual, wrapped in expensive paper and sealed with a wax emblem he didn't recognize. His supervisor had been unusually serious when handing it over. "This one goes directly to the owner, no exceptions. Ring the front bell and wait." The rain started just as Marcus pulled up to the iron gates. Through the downpour, the mansion looked like something from another century. Gothic spires pierced the gray sky, and warm light spilled from windows that seemed to go on forever. He'd delivered to rich houses before, but this was different. This was wealth that didn't need to announce itself. A security guard at the gate checked his identification twice before waving him through. The driveway curved past perfectly manicured gardens, past fountains that probably cost more than his mother made in 5 years. When he finally reached the front entrance, his clothes were soaked through, but his hands were steady. This was just another delivery, just another job. The door opened before he could ring the bell. A woman in an elegant black dress stood in the doorway, her silver hair pulled back in a perfect bun. She looked him up and down, taking in his wet uniform and nervous expression. "You must be the courier. Mr. Blackwood is expecting you." She led him through the entrance hall, their footsteps echoing on marble floors that reflected the chandelier light like water. The walls rose impossibly high, lined with what looked like a museum's worth of artwork. Oil paintings in ornate frames, sculptures on pedestals, and between them, the photographs. At first, Marcus barely noticed them. Black and white portraits, each one professionally shot, each frame identical gold leaf. But as they walked deeper into the mansion, something nagged at him. The faces looked familiar somehow, though he couldn't place why. Then they stopped. The woman gestured toward a sitting room where she said Mr. Blackwood would join him shortly. But Marcus wasn't listening anymore. His eyes had locked onto one particular photograph, hanging at eye level just to his left. The woman in the picture couldn't have been older than 25. Her dark hair was swept back from her face, revealing delicate features and eyes that held a sadness Marcus recognized instantly. She wore a simple white dress, and her smile was gentle, but somehow guarded, as if she were keeping a secret. It was his mother, 24 years younger, but unmistakably Elena Chen. The package slipped from his fingers, hitting the marble floor with a dull thud. His vision blurred at the edges. This couldn't be real. His mother had never mentioned knowing anyone wealthy. She'd never spoken about her past at all. Actually, whenever he asked about her childhood, her family, the years before he was born, she'd change the subject or find sudden urgent tasks that needed her attention. But here she was, displayed like a treasure in a billionaire's mansion. "You recognize her." Marcus spun around. The man standing behind him was tall and distinguished, probably in his early 60s, with silver hair and the kind of presence that commanded attention without effort. He wore a simple gray sweater and dark slacks, but even his casual clothes looked expensive. This had to be Mr. Blackwood. Marcus's voice cracked. He cleared his throat and tried again. "I don't understand. Why is my mom's photo in your house?" Mr. Blackwood's expression was unreadable, but something flickered in his eyes. "Your mother? What's her name?" Elena Chen, but her maiden name was Rodriguez. The words tumbled out before Marcus could stop them. "She's never mentioned you. I've never heard your name before tonight." The older man was quiet for a long moment, studying Marcus's face with an intensity that made him uncomfortable. Finally, he gestured toward the sitting room. "Please, sit down. There are things you need to know." Marcus shook his head. "No, I want answers now. Why do you have her picture? How do you know my mother?" "Because," Mr. Blackwood said quietly, "she was supposed to be my wife." The words hit Marcus like a physical blow. He staggered backward, catching himself against the doorframe. "That's impossible. My mom's never been married. It's just been the two of us since I was born." "She told you she was never married. She told me my father left before I was born, that he wanted nothing to do with us." Marcus's voice was rising now, anger mixing with confusion. "She said we were better off without him." Something shifted in Mr. Blackwood's expression. The careful composure cracked, revealing raw emotion underneath. She told you I left. You're not. Marcus stared at him, the pieces refusing to fit together. You're not my father. No, I'm not your father. The billionaire's voice was barely above a whisper. But I should have been your stepfather. I should have been the man who helped raise you. I should have been there. Marcus felt like the ground was shifting beneath his feet. What are you talking about? Mr. Blackwood moved to a cabinet in the corner of the room and pulled out a leather photo album. He set it on the coffee table and gestured for Marcus to sit. 24 years ago, your mother was the most important person in my world. We were engaged to be married. He opened the album to the first page. More photographs of Elena, but these were different. Candid shots full of life and laughter. Pictures of her at restaurants, at parties, on vacation. And in every photo, she was with the man standing beside Marcus. Now, though, he looked decades younger. We met at a charity gala, Mr. Blackwood continued, turning the pages slowly. She was working for the catering company. I was supposed to be schmoozing donors, but I spent the entire evening following her around, trying to work up the courage to ask her name. Marcus stared at the photographs. His mother looked happy in a way he'd never seen before, radiant, free. She was studying to be a teacher then, putting herself through night school while working 3 jobs, just like she does now. But she had dreams, big dreams. She wanted to open a school for underprivileged kids, wanted to change the world one student at a time. What happened? Marcus's voice was trembling. Mr. Blackwood closed the album. She disappeared. 3 weeks before our wedding, she vanished without a trace. No note, no explanation, no goodbye. I spent years looking for her, hired private investigators, followed every lead, but it was like she'd simply ceased to exist. Marcus thought about his mother's reluctance to talk about the past, her insistence on keeping their life small and private. She was hiding from you. But why? The pain in the older man's voice was unmistakable. I loved her. I would have given her everything. We had plans, dreams we were going to build together. Maybe that was the problem. Marcus stood up abruptly, pacing to the window. Outside, the rain was still falling, turning the world gray and cold. Maybe she didn't want everything. Maybe she just wanted to be left alone. Or maybe someone made her believe she had no choice. Marcus turned back. What do you mean? Mr. Blackwood was staring at Elena's photograph on the wall, his hands clasped behind his back. Your mother wasn't the only one who disappeared that week. There were others. People connected to a case I was working on. People who knew things that certain powerful individuals wanted to keep buried. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. What kind of case? The kind that ruins lives. The kind that gets people killed. Mr. Blackwood met Marcus's eyes. And the kind that might explain why your mother spent 24 years running from the truth. From the truth? Marcus felt the blood drain from his face. What do you mean by people who knew things? What kind of case? Mr. Blackwood moved to his desk, pulling out a thick manila folder. His hands shook slightly as he opened it. I wasn't always just a businessman, Marcus. Before I built my fortune, I worked as an investigative journalist. I was young, ambitious, convinced I could expose the corruption that was eating this city from the inside out. He spread several documents across the coffee table, newspaper clippings, police reports, photographs of men in expensive suits shaking hands in shadowy corners. In the months before your mother disappeared, I was investigating a network of politicians, judges, and police officials. They were taking bribes, fixing cases, destroying evidence. People who tried to speak out against them had a habit of meeting unfortunate accidents. Marcus picked up one of the newspaper clippings. The headline read, "S. City Councilman dies in apparent suicide." Below it, another, "Key witness in corruption case found dead." Your mother knew about the investigation. She knew everything. Elena was my research partner, my sounding board. She helped me piece together the connections, verify sources. She was brilliant at seeing patterns others missed. Mr. Blackwood's voice grew soft with memory. She was also terrified. She kept telling me we were in over our heads, that we should turn everything over to the federal authorities and walk away. But you didn't listen. I was 28 years old and thought I was invincible. I believed truth and justice would protect us. I was an idiot. He sat heavily in his chair, suddenly looking every one of his 60-plus years. The night before Elena disappeared, she received a phone call. I was in the shower when it came, but when I got out, she was white as a sheet. She wouldn't tell me who called or what they said. Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. They threatened her. The next morning, she was gone. Her apartment was cleaned out like she'd never lived there. Her job at the catering company had no record of her employment. Even her enrollment at the university had been erased from their systems. Mr. Blackwood's hands clenched into fists. It was like Elena Rodriguez had simply been deleted from existence. So, you gave up the investigation? What choice did I have? The woman I loved had vanished, possibly because of my reckless pursuit of a story. I turned over everything to the FBI, but by then, key witnesses had died or disappeared. The evidence I'd gathered mysteriously went missing from federal custody. The whole case fell apart. Marcus stood up, pacing to the window again. The rain had stopped, but the world outside still looked gray and uncertain. You think someone made her disappear to stop your investigation? I think someone gave her an ultimatum: disappear forever, or watch everyone she cared about suffer the consequences. Including you, including me, including the child she was carrying. The words hit Marcus like a freight train. He spun around, staring at the older man. Child? What child? Elena was pregnant when she disappeared, 2 months along. We just found out the week before. Mr. Blackwood's voice broke. I thought, I hoped. When I lost track of her, I assumed the worst had happened to both of them. Marcus felt the room spinning around him. The timeline fit perfectly. His mother had always been vague about when exactly he was born, about the circumstances surrounding his birth. He'd never questioned the dates on his birth certificate, never wondered why there were no baby photos from his first few months of life. You think He couldn't finish the sentence. I think Elena Rodriguez disappeared to protect her unborn child from people who would have used him as leverage against her. I think she created a new identity, Elena Chen, and spent the next 24 years making sure no one could ever connect her to the investigation that nearly got us all killed. Marcus slumped into a chair, his head spinning. Everything he thought he knew about his life was crumbling. If this is true, why didn't you keep looking? Why didn't you find us? I did keep looking for years, but Elena was smart and she had help. Someone with serious resources helped her disappear completely. Mr. Blackwood pulled out another photograph, this one more recent. It showed Marcus's mother from a distance, walking out of the diner where she worked. I only found her again 6 months ago. You've been watching us. I've been watching over you. There's a difference. The billionaire's voice was firm. Why? Marcus asked, staring at him. Because she's the only woman I ever loved. Because if you are my son, then I failed you for 19 years. Because some mistakes can't be undone. But maybe they can be balanced out with better choices going forward. The weight of everything crashed down on Marcus at once. His mother's secrecy, her constant fear, her insistence on staying invisible, the way she sometimes looked over her shoulder when they walked down the street, the nightmares she still had, the ones she claimed she couldn't remember when he asked, "Does she know you found us?" No, and she can't know, not yet. The investigation that started all this was never really closed. It was just buried. But recently, some of the key players have started dying of natural causes. Old age, illness. The power structure that protected them is crumbling. He pulled out a thick file and set it on the desk. I've spent the last 20 years building a case. Real evidence this time. Documented proof of the corruption, the murders, the cover-ups, enough to bring down the entire network. Marcus approached the desk cautiously. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because in 2 weeks, I'm turning everything over to a federal prosecutor I trust. A woman who wasn't even born when the original investigation happened. Someone with no connections to the old network." Mr. Blackwood met his eyes. "Once that happens, the people who forced your mother to run will be exposed. They'll be arrested. The threat that's hung over her head for 24 years will finally be gone. And then Elena Rodriguez can stop being Elena Chen. You can stop living in the shadows. And maybe, if she'll have me, I can try to make up for 24 years of lost time." Marcus felt tears he didn't expect burning his eyes. What if she doesn't want to be found? What if she's happy with the life she built? Then I'll respect that, but she deserves the choice. She deserves to know that the danger is over. She can stop running. Outside, the sun was beginning to set, casting long shadows across the mansion's grounds. Marcus thought about his mother, probably just finishing her shift at the dry cleaner, getting ready to head to her evening job. Cleaning offices downtown, working herself to exhaustion every day to keep them afloat, never knowing that the man who once promised to love her forever was watching from a distance, trying to protect her the only way he could. "What happens to us now?" Marcus asked quietly. Mr. Blackwood smiled for the first time since they'd started talking. "Now we wait 2 more weeks. And then we give your mother the greatest gift anyone can receive, freedom." But neither of them knew that Elena Chen had already discovered the truth. She'd seen Marcus's delivery truck parked outside the mansion gates and followed him inside. She was standing in the hallway outside the sitting room. Tears streamed down her face as she listened to every word. The reunion they thought was weeks away was about to happen tonight. The sound came from behind them, soft but unmistakable, a sharp intake of breath, the kind someone makes when they're trying not to cry. Both men turned toward the doorway, and Marcus felt his world tilt on its axis for the second time that night. Elena Chen stood in the shadows of the hallway, still wearing her uniform from the dry cleaner, her dark hair streaked with gray now, her face older, but still achingly familiar. She looked exactly like the woman in the photograph, just weathered by 24 years of running, of hiding, of carrying secrets that had nearly crushed her. Her eyes moved between Marcus and Mr. Blackwood, and the expression on her face was pure devastation. "Mom," Marcus's voice cracked like a teenager's. "How did you—" "I saw your truck outside the gates," she whispered, her accent thicker now, the way it got when she was scared or emotional. "I knew something was wrong. You never deliver to this part of town." Mr. Blackwood hadn't moved, hadn't spoken. He stood frozen, staring at the woman he'd lost 2 decades ago, as if she might disappear again if he so much as breathed wrong. Elena stepped into the room, her hands shaking as she looked around at the photographs, the albums, the evidence of a life that had been paused rather than ended. "James," she said quietly, and hearing his name in her voice broke something in Mr. Blackwood's carefully controlled expression. "Elena." The name came out like a prayer. Marcus watched this reunion, feeling like an intruder in his own life story. These 2 people had loved each other before he existed, had shared dreams and plans that his birth had somehow destroyed. The weight of that responsibility felt crushing. "How long have you known?" Elena asked, moving closer but still keeping distance, still protecting herself even now. 6 months, maybe 7, James said carefully. "I never stopped looking for you." "You should have." The words came out sharp, defensive. "You should have forgotten about me and moved on with your life." "Did you move on with yours?" Elena's composure cracked. Don't do that. Don't make this about what I did or didn't do. You don't understand what they threatened, James. You don't know what they said they'd do to you if I stayed." Marcus finally found his voice. What exactly did they threaten, Mom? Elena turned to him, and for the first time in his life, he saw her not as his strong, capable mother, but as a young woman who'd been terrified into making an impossible choice. They said they'd kill him, she said simply. They said they'd make it look like an accident, just like they did with the others. They said they'd kill you too, once you were born, if I ever tried to contact him or if he ever found us. The room fell silent, except for the ticking of an antique clock somewhere in the distance. They told you I was expendable? James said, his voice hollow. And it worked, didn't it? You're alive. You built this empire. You got to live. James corrected. That's not the same thing as living. Marcus felt like he was watching a play, listening to dialogue that had been rehearsed for 24 years but never performed. Every word carried the weight of decades of regret and what-ifs. Mom, he said quietly, is he my father? Elena's face crumpled. She covered her mouth with her hands, tears finally spilling over. No, baby. No, he's not your biological father. The relief Marcus felt was immediate and confusing. He didn't know why it mattered, but it did. But he's going to be, Elena continued. We were going to be a family, the three of us. James moved closer slowly, like he was approaching a wounded animal. Who is his father, Elena? You never told me. Elena wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. Someone who doesn't matter. Someone who was never going to be part of our lives anyway. She looked at Marcus with infinite sadness. I was so scared when I found out I was pregnant. Not because I didn't want you, but because I didn't know how to protect you from the people who were hunting us. Marcus sat down across from his mother. The people who threatened you, are they still alive? Some of them. Elena glanced at James. I've kept track over the years, reading obituaries, watching the news. Every time one of them died, I felt a little safer, but not safe enough to come back. James pulled out the thick file from his desk. Elena, they can't touch us anymore. I have enough evidence to bury the entire network. Federal prosecutors are ready to move. In 2 weeks, this will all be over. Elena stared at the file like it might explode. What kind of evidence? Financial records, recorded conversations, testimony from people who were too scared to speak 24 years ago, but aren't anymore. James's voice grew stronger. The power structure that protected them has crumbled. Most of the original players are dead or powerless. The few who remain are old, isolated, and about to face justice. You never stopped working the case. I couldn't. Not when it cost me everything that mattered. Elena stood up abruptly, pacing to the window where Marcus had stood earlier. Do you have any idea what these 24 years have been like for me? Working 3 jobs, moving every few years when I got paranoid, never letting Marcus get too close to anyone because I was afraid they might be watching. I can imagine. No, you can't. You can't imagine lying to your child every single day about who he is, where he comes from, why you don't have any family photos or friends, or any kind of normal life. You can't imagine checking over your shoulder every time you leave the house, wondering if today is the day they find you. Marcus felt something break apart inside his chest. Mom, I'm so sorry. You have nothing to be sorry for, baby. None of this is your fault. Elena moved to him, cupping his face in her hands the way she had when he was small. You are the best thing that ever happened to me. Even in the middle of all this mess, you made everything worth it, even though you could have had so much more, Marcus said, gesturing around the opulent room. You could have had this life, this security. I could have had a life where the man I loved was dead. Elena corrected him, where my child grew up without any father figure at all because I was too selfish to make the hard choice. James had been quiet through this exchange, but now he spoke up. Elena, what if there was a way to have both? What if the danger really is over? Elena looked at him with exhausted hope. It's been 24 years, James. We're different people now. You don't know who I've become. Then let me learn. Let me try to earn back what we lost. And what about Marcus? He's not your son? He's not your responsibility. He's the son of the woman I love. That makes him my responsibility, if you'll let me take it. Marcus watched this conversation with growing amazement. These two people were negotiating the terms of a love story that had been interrupted by violence and fear, trying to figure out if it was possible to pick up pieces that had been scattered for more than 2 decades. "There's something else," Elena said quietly. "Something I never told you before I left." James tensed. "What?" "The night I got the phone call. The night before I disappeared. They didn't just threaten to kill you. They said they had photos of us together, compromising photos. They said if I didn't disappear, they'd release them to the press and destroy your reputation along with everything else. I wouldn't have cared about that. I would have. I cared about your future, your career, your ability to make a difference in the world. I wasn't going to let them destroy you just because you fell in love with the wrong person." Marcus felt tears burning his eyes as he finally understood the full scope of his mother's sacrifice. She hadn't just given up her own happiness. She'd given up her identity, her freedom, her entire existence to protect the man she loved and the child she was carrying. "Mom," he said softly, "you saved all of us." Elena smiled through her tears. "I tried to, baby. I really tried." James cleared his throat. "Elena, I need you to know something. The investigation, the evidence I've been gathering all these years, it's not about revenge anymore. It's about making sure what happened to us never happens to anyone else." "What do you mean?" "The corruption network we were investigating didn't die when you disappeared. It evolved, got smarter, more careful, but it kept operating over the past 24 years. How many other families do you think they destroyed? How many other people were forced to choose between love and survival?" Elena's face went pale. "You're saying there are others?" "I'm saying there were others, but after the prosecutors move, after the arrests happen, after the trials are over, there won't be any more. The cycle ends with us." Marcus stood up, moving between his mother and the man who might become his stepfather. "So, what happens now? Do we wait 2 weeks and hope everything goes according to plan? Do we keep hiding until then?" James looked at Elena, then at Marcus, his expression resolving into something Marcus had never seen before. Pure determination mixed with love. "No more hiding," he said firmly. "We don't wait 2 weeks. We don't keep living in fear." Elena nodded slowly. "Together then," she whispered. 2 weeks later, the headlines screamed about the largest corruption bust in the city's history. 15 arrests, decades of crimes exposed, justice finally served. But in a small courthouse ceremony, only 3 people mattered. Elena Rodriguez, no longer Elena Chen, stood between the son who had saved her and the man who had never stopped loving her. Marcus watched his mother smile, without fear, for the first time in his memory. James slipped a simple ring onto her finger, the same one he'd bought 24 years ago and never given to anyone else. Moral of the story: sometimes the greatest journeys aren't about where we arrive, but about the truths we finally stop running from. That night, the delivery didn't bring a package. It brought a mother back to the life she sacrificed everything to protect. Did this story move you as much as it moved Marcus? Comment below what you would have done in his place. And don't forget to subscribe for more incredible stories of love, sacrifice, and secrets finally revealed.